Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American supernatural horror film from 2019, titled The Evil Down the Street. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. The movie begins with a couple, Michael Ryan and his wife Katie, moving into a new house with their two daughters, Kristen and Maddie. While they are unpacking, Maddie goes down to the basement and discovers a hidden door. Inside, she finds a box containing a mask and a Ouija board. As she reaches out to touch the Ouija board, the door suddenly closes behind her, and Michael, who hears her scream, quickly comes to her aid. Later, after helping the family settle in, Kristen pays the laborers who helped them move, and one of the workers, Adams, mentions that they also offer home inspections for rats. Outside, Michael meets their next-door neighbors, Bill Lawford and his wife Penny, who have come by to welcome them with some cookies. Penny, who is very talkative, starts to mention the previous owner of the house, but their conversation is interrupted when Maddie calls out to Michael. Afterward, Michael tells Katie about what their neighbors said regarding the house's previous owner, before stepping outside to check the mailbox, where he meets another neighbor, Don Archer. Don briefly mentions that the previous owner ended up in the hospital but quickly retreats back into his house without providing any more details. The next day, while preparing breakfast, Katie and Kristen complain about not sleeping well the previous night because they kept hearing noises coming from the walls. Meanwhile, as Michael is in the bathroom, he begins to hear a chittering noise. He traces the sound to the basement, but it suddenly stops, and when he gets inside, he notices the basement is a mess. Later, Maddie and her friend Brittany are caught by Katie playing with the Ouija board in the basement, scolding and sending the girls upstairs. Left alone, Katie asks the Ouija board if it's possessed and the planchette moves to yes. 3 weeks later, Kristen sneaks back home late at night after a party, and while in the kitchen, she starts hearing footsteps coming from upstairs. She goes to investigate but is startled by Katie, who tells her it's just her imagination before heading to bed. The next morning, during a hike, Kristen decides to tell Michael about her experience the previous night and how Katie creeped her out, but Michael dismisses it as her imagination. During the hike, Maddie falls and injures her leg, forcing the family to return home. At home, Michael hears some noises coming from the basement, and to his shock, he finds Katie naked, playing with the Ouija board. She tries to persuade him to join her, but he refuses and carries her out of the basement. In the following days, Katie's behavior begins to change, and one night, while Michael is working on his computer, he hears noises downstairs. When he goes to investigate, Katie suddenly appears and startles him, telling him to go to bed. The next morning, Michael confronts Katie about her strange behavior the night before, but she has no memory of it and suggests he might have been dreaming. When Michael insists that it wasn't a dream, Katie becomes angry and storms off. Concerned, Michael visits Bill to ask more about the previous owner of the house. Bill gives him a Catholic placard from Father Bob, explaining that he was instructed to pass it on to anyone who moves into the house. Kristen begins hearing noises coming from the kitchen, and when she goes to check, she finds no one there but is startled once again by Katie. Katie then makes Maddie and Kristen peel a large amount of potatoes for dinner, something unusual for the family. When Michael returns home, he questions Maddie and Kristen about the potatoes. They tell him that Katie made them do it and that they think their mom is acting strangely. Michael heads upstairs to talk to Katie, but she opens the door and accuses him of eavesdropping on her conversation after finding him standing in front of their bedroom door. During dinner, Katie is shocked to see the peeled potatoes and denies instructing the girls to do it. When Michael asks Katie about her day, she takes offense and starts acting erratically in front of Michael, Maddie, and Kristen before storming away from the dinner table. Having had enough of Katie's strange behavior, Michael decides to visit their neighbors to get some answers, unaware that Katie is watching him from the upper floor. Bill and Penny welcome Michael into their home, and Penny begins sharing what she knows about the previous owners of his house. She reveals that the original owners were a lovely couple, but 2 years later, the husband died after falling down the basement stairs, with some people believing he was pushed, and shortly after, the wife sold the house. Penny continues, explaining that it was after the second occupants moved and that strange things began to happen. One night, Penny looked out of her bedroom window and to her shock, she saw people in black robes and hoods performing a seance inside the house, before she was caught off guard when one of them noticed her. The couple decides to sell the house, but before Penny can tell Michael what happened to the last owner before Michael and his family moved in, the doorbell rings. It turns out to be Katie, who, despite Penny's attempts to start a conversation, she quickly takes the wine Don Archer was enjoying, drinks it, and then leaves the house in silence. Later, Kristen's friend Nicole comes over for an assignment, and Kristen begins recounting how her mother has been acting weird ever since they moved into the house. Nicole brings up the Ouija board that Kristen mentioned earlier, suggesting it might be the cause of Katie's recent behavior, but Kristen insists her mother wouldn't play with such things. In the middle of the night, Maddie is awakened by a noise coming from downstairs, and when she goes to investigate, she finds Katie dancing and laughing. Scared, Maddie quickly runs back to her room, and shortly afterward, the possessed Katie enters Maddie's room, whispers in her ear, before hiding behind a door when she hears footsteps approaching. It turns out to be Michael, who has come to check on Maddie. Frightened, Maddie clings to him and makes him promise not to leave her. Katie interrupts them, dismissing Maddie's fear as just a nightmare, which angers Michael, and he firmly tells Katie to go to bed. Fed up with Katie's behavior, Michael decides to call Father Bob and invites him over for dinner. The priest agrees and tells Michael that he will also need to bless their home, and when Michael later informs Katie about this, she becomes agitated. Meanwhile, Kristen starts researching about Ouija boards and chats with Nicole, revealing that what Nicole said about the board might be true and that she needs to find it. The next day, while preparing for a family outing, Katie sits in her room drinking vodka, which upsets Michael, and he angrily yells at her to get into the car. The family sets off on their outing, but Kristen stays behind due to a school assignment. While they're gone, Kristen searched the basement and the entire house for the Ouija board but can't find it. Eventually, she enters Katie's room, and after thoroughly going through her belongings, she managed to find the Ouija board in a drawer, but choose not to take it. At the same time, Katie, who begins to feel suspicious, tells Michael that she forgot her phone at home and needs to go back for it. When Michael refuses and ignores her, Katie furiously grabs the steering wheel, which surprises Michael, and he decides to turn back. Upon reaching home, Katie heads straight to her room to check if the Ouija board is still in her drawer. Satisfied, she drinks a bottle of vodka before confronting Kristen, telling her that going through her personal belongings is wrong, which surprised Kristen. Later that night, Father Bob visits Michael and his family for dinner. The atmosphere is calm at first, but when Father Bob starts asking Katie some probing questions, she becomes annoyed and storms away from the table, with Maddie and Kristen also leaving the table. Shocked by Katie's behavior, Father Bob suggests that there might be a demonic influence, but Michael refused to believe that Katie is possessed, and Father Bob leaves soon after. Later that night, Michael notices that Katie is not in their bedroom and starts searching for her. Hearing some noise, he heads to the basement but finds nothing. As he prepares to leave, he encounters Katie standing on the staircase, holding a knife. Michael managed to take the knife from her, and they return to their room. The following morning, Michael receives a text message from Father Bob, who wants to see him around 10 a.m. Later, when Michael confronts Katie about her strange behavior the previous night, she only gets angry. Michael visits Father Bob in his office, where the priest again raises the issue of Katie's possible possession. During their conversation, Michael receives a text from Kristen about Katie's odd behavior, and before leaving, Father Bob advises Michael to read about deliverance in a Christian novel. The next day, Adams, one of the laborers from the beginning of the movie, visits the Ryan home for an insect inspection. He starts in the basement and is horrified to find Katie eating a rat. Shocked, Adams runs out of the basement without telling Michael what he witnessed. The following night, Father Bob arrives at the Ryans' house for the planned deliverance session, and he instructs Michael to get his daughters out of the house. While waiting in the bookshelf area, the possessed Katie confronts Father Bob, and the priest offers to help her, but she refuses, insisting that he leave. Instead, Father Bob begins commanding the demon in Katie to reveal its name, initiating the deliverance session. During the session, the demon inside Katie begins to speak, and Father Bob momentarily push her backward, urging her to fight the demon within. The session concludes with Katie finally being delivered, restoring peace to the home. The next morning, as the family prepares to go to church, Katie thanks Michael for not giving up on her during her possession. As they drive away, the movie concludes with a mysterious figure seen watching them from the upper floor, hinting that something might still be lurking in the house. Okay guys, that's all the recap about The Evil Down the Street from 2019. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.